Okay, so let's unpack this. We've got a really fascinating stack of material here. We're diving into a topic that, on the surface seems simple, but it holds this immense complexity. We're talking about the pure olive oil used in the menorah during Hanukkah. And it turns out it's not just a historical footnote. It's more like a blueprint for how to approach wisdom and even personal character.
That is absolutely the core of our mission today. We're trying to go beyond the well-known story of the miracle, and we're asking a very specific question. What is the core spiritual lesson we can derive directly from the physical and chemical properties of that oil?
Right.
We're really looking for the why. Why this substance? And what do those properties teach you, the listener, about maximizing your own personal growth and, you could say, spiritual illumination?
I think that's such an essential reframing. Because if you just stop and think about the raw material for a second, the olive, it has to be, well, brutally crushed and firmly squeezed to release its essence. It feels almost violent.
It's a very harsh process.
Yeah. So how does the substance that's born from all that crushing become the ultimate symbol of purity, wisdom, and light? To answer that, I think we have to start not with theology, but with basic physics and chemistry.
Precisely. Let's start there. When we examine the ancient requirements for the menorah in the temple, the fuel wasn't chosen by chance, not at all. It had to meet these really stringent criteria. And pure olive oil, it offered these practical empirical advantages over pretty much any other common alternative they had at the time.
Like other plant oils? Or...
Yeah, other plant oils, even early petroleum derivatives. Olive oil was superior.
Okay, so what made it empirically superior? We hear the word pure, but what does that purity actually translate to in function?
So the primary advantage is its exceptional cleanliness when it burns. Pure olive oil is nearly a perfect fuel source. We're talking up to 99% pure fuel.
99%.
Which means almost all of its content is combustible and ready to burn. This lack of impurities, the volatile solids or other bits of plant matter you find in lower-grade oils, that translates directly to combustion efficiency. It produces very, very little smoke, almost no bad odor.
Which makes total sense for a closed, sacred space like the temple. I mean, you can't have a flickering, smoky lamp filling the sanctuary with haze.
Exactly.
But okay, beyond the efficiency, let's talk about safety. If this oil is so readily combustible, how safe was it to handle, especially in a place where lamps had to burn constantly?
That's a critical question, and it reveals one of its most remarkable features. Olive oil has a very high flash point. Now, for you listening, think of the flash point as the fuels. It's patience. It's the temperature at which a liquid produces enough vapor to actually ignite.
Okay, so something like gasoline has zero patience. It just vaporizes instantly.
Exactly. Kerosene, similar fuels, they ignite very quickly, often at room temperature. But a large volume of liquid olive oil is not flammable at room temperature. Yeah. Because of that high flash point, if a lamp was accidentally knocked over, the liquid oil itself wouldn't just catch fire. The flame would simply extinguish. It would drown in the oil.
Wow.
It's an inherently self-extinguishing safety mechanism. And that would have been priceless in a busy, sacred place.
That's just an incredible detail. It suggests that safety and purity were like prerequisites for illumination. But tell me about the light quality itself. You mentioned it differs from, say, modern fuels.
It produces a very distinctive light. You're not getting that sharp, bright white light of an electric bulb or even a refined kerosene lamp. Olive oil gives off a warm, soft, orange gold glow. And that specific gentle color actually comes from incandescent soot particles, tiny little specks of unburnt carbon that glow hot inside the flame right before they're consumed.
So it's a softer light, maybe a more contemplative one?
Our sources indicate that this warmth was highly valued. It was seen as a quality that really elevated the atmosphere. In fact, the secondary alternative that the sages recommended for the Hanukkah menorah was pure beeswax candles.
And they give off a similar light.
Exactly. They were chosen specifically because they produce a very similar warm light quality. So the fuel they chose was pure, safe, efficient, and it provided this gentle, reliable light that set a spiritual tone.
That's a fantastic scientific grounding. So we start with the physical reality, a clean, safe, pure fuel. But now we have to turn to those contradictions you hinted at earlier, the paradoxical qualities that take this from just being oil to being a profound spiritual metaphor.
This is where we bridge that gap between chemistry and character. Oil is just full of these inherent contradictions that, when you map them onto human experience, they become these powerful lessons.
Okay, let's start with that first one. The dual nature of its production versus its effect.
Right. So the first paradox is all about how it's made. Like you said, it's extracted through this harsh act of crushing and firmly squeezing the olive. It's not released easily. And yet, once it's extracted, the oil itself is defined by its gentle, pervasive nature. It quietly seeps into everything it touches. It softens, it flavors, it saturates.
So a harsh beginning leads to a gentle, quiet influence. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the second duality?
The second is rooted in its relationship with other liquids. We all know oil fundamentally does not mix with other liquids. It keeps its integrity. It stays separate.
Right.
Yet, and here's the key, because of its low density, its lightness, it invariably and completely effortlessly always rises to the surface. It just cannot be suppressed.
So crushing leads to gentle influence,
Mhm.
and staying separate leads to effortlessly rising. That's incredible. And the sources draw a clear line from this physical reality to spiritual wisdom, right? Connecting this triad of oil, wisdom, and light.
Exactly. I mean, just as the ancient texts pair darkness with foolishness, a fool walks in the dark. While the divine word is a light to my path, the physical reality of the oil becomes the spiritual foundation for illumination. It shows us the process necessary to get the wisdom that overcomes that darkness.
Okay, let's tackle that crushing analogy head on. If the olive has to be crushed to yield this pure, illuminating oil, what does that imply about how we acquire wisdom? I mean, is wisdom only found through suffering? Doesn't crushing sound more like victimization than refinement?
That's a crucial distinction, and it's really important for you, the listener, to get this. The metaphor isn't about victimization, it's about refinement through self-effacement. So when a person encounters a severe hardship, a moment of real brokenness, that external crushing can force a necessary internal change.
A shattering of your previous assumptions about the world.
Yes, but the deeper lesson here is the internal choice to humble one's ego. That is the voluntary crushing. When we choose to step back and admit, I don't have all the answers, we get refined. Just like the olive pulp is separated from the pure oil, and that is the moment we become receptive to true wisdom, which our ego was blocking before.
So the crushing is really an act of clearing space for light. And there's a direct link to the Hebrew word for wisdom here, isn't there?
Absolutely. The Hebrew word for wisdom is chokhmah. And our spiritual texts offer this interpretation of the word that translates to a profound, self-aware question. What am I?
What am I?
That question is the ultimate recognition of self-nullification. It's the genuine sign of humility. Wisdom isn't found by declaring, I know everything. It's found by genuinely questioning your own smallness in the face of the universe.
That's a fundamental reversal. Wisdom starts by admitting ignorance. We all know that one person, at work or in a social setting who has built up this wall of ego and just assumes they have the final word on everything. Are there walls?
Yeah.
Are they blocking off the light?
Precisely. Arrogance acts as a source of darkness and foolishness because the ego creates an impenetrable wall. It just prohibits intellectual and spiritual growth because it closes off the very possibility of learning. The sages were unequivocal on this, they stated. I, God, and he, the arrogant person, cannot dwell together.
Wow. That quote carries some serious weight. It implies that if you walk around convinced of your own perfection or that your knowledge is complete, you are fundamentally blocking the source of true light. Your own pride becomes the impurity that stops the pure oil from flowing.
That's it. And the humility you gain from being crushed, whether it's by hardship or by internal choice, it clears that space. It allows your consciousness to maintain this posture of constant receptivity. The olive oil just reminds us that the best fuel is achieved only after that initial hard separation from its physical casing.
So once that crushing yields wisdom, we get to the other paradoxical properties we talked about, seeping and rising. How does a person who has this refined wisdom, this humility, how do they manifest it in the world through those two actions?
Let's look at the seeping analogy first. Oil quietly saturates everything it touches. Humble people, because they've crushed their own ego, they're naturally sensitive to the feelings, the ideas, the knowledge of other people. They don't need a spotlight. They saturate everyone around them with genuine, quiet influence.
They lead by being, not by demanding to be heard. And people can intuitively sense their modesty, their unassuming nature, which makes their wisdom, the product of their crushing, so much more palatable.
Absolutely. Humility is the ultimate form of soft power. Their knowledge gets combined with the knowledge of others because they respect everyone in the room. And that produces a collective wisdom that's so much greater. They become true examples, natural leaders.
And then we have the rising analogy. How does wisdom rise when we live with humility?
So this addresses the non-mixing property of the oil. A truly wise person maintains their integrity. They don't just mix their core values with fleeting trends or toxic influences, but because they are light, they always rise. They never believe they know everything. They are consciously seeking to learn from everyone around them.
That recognition that everyone, no matter their station or apparent knowledge, holds some piece of wisdom unique to the universe, that is the ultimate act of humility.
It is the total opposite of being a closed system. This continuous receptivity, this act of seeking knowledge from all sources, it doesn't just expand their understanding, it instills this profound respect for everything and everyone. The oil keeps its pure essence, yet because of its nature, it is guaranteed to rise and illuminate the world. The rise is effortless because the humility already did the heavy work.
So what is this whole process, this chain of purity, crushing, rising, continuous learning? What does it ultimately produce in a person's soul?
Ah.
Our sources bring us to the final, necessary piece of the puzzle: gratitude.
Gratitude is the inevitable final state. It has to be. If you live with the humility of Chokmah, constantly asking, what am I? You understand that every insight, every person who taught you something, every circumstance that refined you is a gift. You stop seeing your achievements as purely self-generated.
You recognize that the light isn't only from you, it's flowing through you.
Precisely. And this connection is made explicit in the holiday itself, which is centered on the miracle of the oil. During Hanukkah, the prayers specifically include acknowledging the miracles and giving praise. This is the practical culmination of the whole spiritual lesson from the oil. Humble people naturally show gratitude. They recognize the daily miracles in their lives, and they choose not to take anything for granted.
We've established the profound spiritual rewards, but it's worth noting that this posture of gratitude also provides some very tangible, measured benefits in the physical world.
Oh, absolutely. The research supports the spiritual teaching perfectly. People who intentionally practice gratitude, those who take the time to recognize the good things in their lives, no matter how small, they tend to be significantly happier, more well-rounded, and statistically, they even live longer. It is the optimal state of well-being, and it's derived directly from the wisdom that humility provides.
This has been a remarkable deep dive. We began by just looking at the physical properties of a clean, safe, pure fuel olive oil.
Yeah.
And we ended up with this profound blueprint for building a resilient, happy, and illuminated life. And it's all built on self-effacement, continuous learning, and that final state of gratitude.
It really shows how physical matter can embody a universe of wisdom. The purity of the oil, which provides the light, is achieved only through crushing. So if wisdom and illumination are the result of brokenness or of chosen humility, you have to ask yourself, what seemingly negative, crushing experience in your own life might actually be the fuel that's preparing you to rise and illuminate others? And what specific lessons might you be missing today just because you're not viewing the world through that lens of continuous receptivity and humility? That awareness, that is the light the oil asks us to carry forward.